If you'd like to, please subscribe. It helps me out a lot. I post every Wednesday.
Hey everyone, my name is Catherine and thank you so much for clicking on today's video. Today I wanted to talk about Contiki, which I haven't talked about Contiki in a while. I thought I would make a video about things to know before doing a Contiki trip, because booking a trip, and especially if you booked it solo and you've never done a Contiki trip or any similar type of a trip, it can be a lot. It can be overwhelming, stressful, exciting, but stressful. And so I thought I'd help out by giving some tips and advice. I wrote them down in my Pisces notebook because I'm a Pisces. So if I'm looking down, that's why, to look at my notes. The first trip that I did with Contiki, they don't have currently, I'm pretty sure, because of political climates. But in 2017, I did a Scandinavia and Russia trip, which was really cool to do. I actually did it with one of my close friends, where her family heritage is in Sweden and Norway, so we were able to see that on her end. And then my family is Russian and Belarusian, and we actually went through Belarus as well, which was like, I never thought I would do a group travel within Belarus, because it's like not a common country to visit at all. That was in 2017. And then in 2019, my last big trip before the pandemic hit, I did 2 back-to-back trips with Contiki. I did one of their trips to Egypt, and then afterwards I did their Israel and Jordan trip, which honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, probably also isn't running because of the political climate. Like, what is going on in the world? I'm just realizing, like, all of my trips except for Egypt, like, might not even be running now because everything everything's happening. But anyway, I'm just gonna now go into my notes and what I wrote for things that's good to know before going on your Contiki trip. So when you book your trip, you get a lot of things included, like hotels, maybe breakfasts, a lot of the big like activities that you do or main activities there, your tour guide, the bus driver and transportation. But there are also going to be additional, what they like to call no regrets inclusions. So make sure you budget some money for doing these types of inclusions that aren't a part of the initial price that you pay. And a lot of these activities, I feel like usually when it comes to them, like 90% of people do them. Like, it's pretty common that nearly all, except for like a handful or like 2 or 3 people, won't do them. So just be aware that there might be some kind of costs that come up like that. Sometimes you'll know ahead of time in your account. Sometimes you won't know until later and you kind of have to book it on the spot. Make sure you kind of budget for that. And it's hard to know, like, without specifics of where you're going or even who your tour guide is, with like how much, but just be aware of that there might be like some of those costs that are in addition to that initial trip fee. Also, one thing to note is some companies like EF Ultimate Break, when you buy, you can buy it with or without flights. With Contiki, flights aren't included. Sometimes a lot of people prefer that so they can choose the flights that they want, but just to be aware that there's also that cost. And then the next thing when it comes to like inclusions and activities is that you don't have to do everything that everyone is doing. These Contiki trips, it's very fast-paced, it's very go, and it's really easy to just get burnt out fast, especially with all the people there, all the new people you're meeting. I'm an introvert, for example, and deal with like social anxiety, and so it was a lot, and it can be a lot, and it's still really fun and amazing, but just, you probably hear it all the time, but balance is key. So maybe make sure, if you have like bucket list things you need / really want to do in your destination and you see the inclusions and you want to do those, still have some free time, whether it's a whole day or some evenings or some mornings or whatever, to have it be open so that you have the option once you're in the tour and you see how you're feeling to be able to rest. And FOMO, like the fear of missing out, is such a thing, and I deal with it, but everyone does things differently, has different interests, different energy levels, everything, and just like do what's best for you. Because if you do everything and you say yes to everything, you will burn out fast. and then just not enjoy the rest of your trip or get sick or whatever. And yeah, just take it easy on yourself, and balance is key. The next thing is people in Contiki tours are known to be into partying and drinking a lot. I feel like it's probably most likely no secret and that you've already heard this before, and that stereotype is very true. People love to just, a lot of times, some people view it as like a big drinking game and party game, and they just want to know like where the clubs are, and that's like their thing. Their like travel is just a party. And then some people are traveling, but then they also do love to party, and it's like they do both. For me, I don't like nightlife. I don't drink at all. And I'm introverted, and I've still been fine on these tours. So if you're worried about that, just be aware that it will be a thing. People will do it. Most people will do it. But there's always a handful of people that aren't into that, and they will stay in the evenings, or like, you know, go to the hotel after dinner, or maybe do other nighttime activities. Like, I'm trying to think of examples, like a night market or whatever that's not like nightlife related. So just know that you'll find the people that you resonate with the best, that have the most similar interests to you. And don't be worried that you're going to be the one person that doesn't drink. Just do what feels best for you. But I will say, I've seen people that would drink a lot and then they looked miserable on the bus the next day. So if you're going to drink, also be mindful that you're in a new place, you're going, and you can't just like drink nonstop and not like feel the repercussions. So just be mindful and take care of yourself. Speaking of buses, you will spend a lot of time on the coach or the bus when you're on your Contiki trip. Generally, you will fly into the country from your home country, and then between each city, most likely, usually, you will be on the bus the whole time, and the bus will be like your home base. Buses are a great time to catch up on sleep, so a lot of people recommend bringing like a neck pillow or a blanket or some kind of a pillow, even like stuffed animal pillow type thing, to be able to sleep. Also, a great idea is to download movies or TV shows, because Wi-Fi can be spotty. Obviously, you can maybe download while in the hotel, but I think just ahead of time, download a bunch of stuff if you want to watch it. If you don't get car sick while reading, I do, so I don't read while on the bus, but bring something to read or journal if it doesn't give you motion sickness. But there will be a lot of bus time, which has its pros and cons, I will say. Cons is that you're on the bus a lot and it's not the funnest thing, but the pro is that because the trip is so fast-paced, and you're going to a new city every couple of days, or even like a couple of days in a row, there's a new city every day, and you have all these new people, and you have the tour and walking tours and activities during the day, and then everyone's going out at night and drinking. The bus time is a really nice balance to all that, to be able to just relax. And usually bus time is pretty quiet and people are sleeping. Sometimes there'll be chatter and some like games to get to know each other, especially if you're like reaching your destination or you just got on the bus or whatever. But if it's like a long haul, couple of hours to the next city, you're most likely going to be just like sleeping or watching something or just looking out the window. The next thing is the Contiki cough is real. You are with people all the time in a new environment. Once somebody gets sick, which it's bound to happen, out of the like 20, 30, 40 plus people that are on the tour, then it's gonna quickly go around, and there's a good chance that you might get a cold at the end of your trip. But I feel like usually, at least, it's not until you're like the tail end of your trip or you're already home, at least, so it doesn't affect your travels too much. But just to be aware of that, and to bring with you some medications just in case, whether it's cold medicine, motion sickness, Dramamine medicine, whatever, to have it on hand for yourself, or there's going to be somebody that'll probably need something at some point. The next thing is that hookups do happen a lot of times when it comes to like partying, but also just like meeting all these new people. You're all between the ages of 18 to 35. You're all on vacation, on holiday together. And a lot of people, like more than half the people that go on these trips, they go solo. So oftentimes they're single people. And so you will hear, you know, sometimes people do hook up, they were enjoying their trip to the max. But just to be aware of that, obviously don't do anything you don't want to do, but just to be aware of that. And like sometimes people joke, I've seen this on TikTok, of like people on Contiki coupling up. And like I saw this one TikTok, if I find it I can add it, but it's like this one girl showing herself on the bus, and she's like the one left because everyone else is coupled up and they're like sitting next to each other on the bus. If you're not interested in that, don't worry. I've been on 3 Contiki trips, and I went with my friend, and we weren't interested in that. We were just traveling and having fun and making friends. But just know there's also more of like a gender balance. Like if you do a trip such as EF Ultimate Break, which is what I've been doing lately, those trips are so like heavily female versus male. I would say there would be like a token 1 or 2 males and then everyone else is a female on those trips. And I feel like maybe it's because females just feel most comfortable in a group travel setting, and then men maybe just think like, oh, it is safer for men to travel. Like that's not a hidden fact. And then they just, because they feel safer, because they just travel on their own. I would say statistically they're about 60% females and then 40% males. The next thing is, oftentimes I have to remember, a lot of places still really heavily rely on cash, and a lot of businesses won't take card, they'll just take cash. So always make sure that you have cash on hand, and also know that you'll have to tip your tour director and your bus driver at the end of the tour. So make sure that you have enough money to be able to tip at the end. But also I've learned over the years, it's best to get cash once you're in country to get the best rate. And sometimes the airport, once you land somewhere, isn't the best place. The first day or so, if you get there the day the tour starts, you should be fine the first day or so to not have cash and use your card. And then your tour director will tell you where the best place to get the best rates are. My next thing is to go solo on these trips. Don't worry if you're going solo, because you are in the majority. Like at least 60%, or if not more, of people go solo on these trips. And I did mention that I've gone on these trips with one of my friends, and it's fun to do them with your friend. But going solo, I've done it before, and sometimes it's almost like at the beginning it can be scary because you don't know people, but then a lot of times it's almost easier going solo than going with a friend. The majority of people go solo, so it's kind of fun to just have like this fresh start with everyone. The next thing, I struggle with this, so I'm saying this to myself, not just to you all. Travel lightly. Try to pack less. It's so hard to say, and I know like I have to pack in a few weeks for a trip. I'm gonna be like struggling to pack, but try to pack lightly, try to pack layers. You can always do laundry. Laundry, while I've traveled, has been readily available almost everywhere. If it wasn't available in one accommodation, it would be available in the next, and you change accommodations every like 1 to 3 nights. Just remember that, and obviously make sure you're able to like lug your own stuff, because no one's going to lug your stuff for you. Usually if you have like your main big bag, it'll go under the bus, like in the bus underneath, and then you'll bring your backpack or whatever on top. Now, the number one thing when it comes to Contiki trips, and just in general, but you will hear this on Contiki trips a lot, is do not be late. When it comes to travel and Contiki trips, I do not play around. I'm not playing that game. I've seen how people being late, how it pisses off everyone, including the tour director, how stressed the tour director gets, how you get told off, you get in trouble, you get threatened with staying behind, because if it gets to a certain point, you will be left behind. Because imagine there's 40 people on this tour bus. There's the driver and there's the Contiki trip manager, and there's a tight schedule, and you have to get the 40 people to this one tour, and it takes X amount of time to get to this one tour, and then after this tour you have this other thing booked and this other thing booked. And if you're constantly running late, or even just once, it throws off the entire schedule. So I can only imagine how stressful that is. So don't be late. If you are slow in the mornings, give yourself more time than you need. You can always chill on the bus, because the stress and then the judgment / trouble you will be in, if you are one of those people, it's not worth it. It's never worth it. So just do not be late. You might actually be left behind. Another thing to keep in mind is usually the more expensive a Contiki trip is, the more unknown or uncommon the destination is, the older the demographic of people normally are, and maybe there's more couples than usual. I've noticed for like the Europe trips, a lot of it is bigger trips or bigger groups of people, younger, like early 20s kind of demographic. They want to party. It's mostly single people. Obviously, if you're older or a couple, I'm not saying don't go on it. That's just going to be like the general kind of consensus to how the group will most likely look. But say you're going to somewhere that's not as common, like maybe Egypt, like I went, or some other places, then it's going to be generally probably a smaller group of people, and also, like I said, older demographic. So just to keep that in mind. I think it's just usually when people start to travel, once they like on their own, once they hit 18 or early 20s, usually people like to do the big European sites or what have you first, and then once they've seen those and they're continuing to travel, they're starting to see like the lesser known parts. It's just my guess. I mean, that's what happened with me. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is a lot of people talk about whether or not Contiki is worth it, or if you should just do it on your own free time and plan it yourself. And of course, every situation is different, and I've done Contiki, I've done other tour groups, I've done solo or like my own trips planned by myself or with like friends that I know. And I would say in general, I think Contiki, maybe it costs more than that trip that you could have done on your own. But at the same time, I think it's generally pretty well worth it because the logistics, and they plan everything for you. So not having to do all that work, because I love traveling, but I don't like planning for everything. It stresses me out. So I'd rather just book something and not have to worry about it, have that peace of mind, have that all logistically taken care of for me. So I think it's totally worth it to have stress-free travel. Also, your tour guide is a local or does trips all the time and has been to this place that you're going to often, and they know really good things to do, really good things to see, so you'll get like an inside scoop once you're there. And then also traveling with a group of people that are your age or around your age, and just kind of having a built-in like network and like friend group. Obviously you'll make friends with certain people versus others. You're not going to be equally friends with everyone, especially if there's like 40 people. But being able to go in and knowing that you have people that you're doing the same exact trip with, you're going to bond over, you're going to become friends, especially if you're doing something solo. Like group travel is perfect for solo travelers, especially if you're new to solo traveling. So I just love that. And I've become good friends with people on my Contiki trips. I've seen them post trips as well. Like when I went to Australia, I saw multiple people from my Russia Scandinavia trip. A lot of Australians do Contiki trips. And I guess speaking of, I had mentioned, which is I feel like a big thing, is some tour companies, it's just going to be Americans, or it's just catered towards a certain demographic or region of the world. But Contiki is an Australian, I believe, company, so a lot of Australians go on Contiki trips, a lot of Europeans go on Contiki trips, and then some Americans, Canadians, and what have you. So it's more of a diverse group of people. So if you're wanting to travel with a tour company with people from all over the world, then Contiki is definitely a good option to look at. So that has been my general things that are good to know about Contiki, and I hope that you've learned from this and found it insightful. Let me know if you have any trips to Contiki planned, and I hope to see you in a future video of mine. Bye!